Okay, so welcome to American Spaces on Air. Today we have a very special guest. Joining us today is Erna Blancquaert. She is a PhD in viticulture since December 2015 at the Stellenbosch University. She is a Fulbright African Scholar Alumnus and spent her 6 months Fulbright at Washington State University. And she is currently the coordinator of Beta Global Erasmus project for the Stellenbosch University and a reviewer for a number of accredited journals. Welcome, Erna. How are you today?
Hi, good evening, Mario, from Stellenbosch, South Africa. Thank you very much for having me, and hopefully it will be a fruitful and insightful interview. So Stellenbosch is located, it's a town in the Western Cape. In South Africa, we have about 9 provinces, and it's the only province in South Africa where 90% of grapevine and wine is cultivated. You might be wondering why only in this particular province. It's because there is a Mediterranean climatic condition. So we have winter rainfall just like in Chile, so in June, July, August. And then, of course, we've got hot, dry summers. And our summers is normally from, just like in South America, of course, in December, January, February. But there are some slight differences in terms of winemaking and when we harvest, because in Chile, you of course harvest a little bit later compared to South Africa. So Stellenbosch University is situated about it's a 30-minute drive from Cape Town. And of course, I'm sure most of you have seen the lovely beaches and scenery we've got. I had the opportunity to visit your wonderful and beautiful country, Chile, as well, which I am very fond of as well. And I wish to come and visit you again once we are past COVID, and just to taste some of your magnificent and exquisite wines you offer. But Stellenbosch University is just over 100 years old. It started as it was known as the Victoria College, and it was later called or renamed to Stellenbosch University. The faculty that my department is situated in, the Faculty of Agri-Sciences, is one of the oldest faculties, and what was one of the oldest faculties or first faculties of the university. And currently we are situated in the center of town. So within the Faculty of Agri-Sciences, we have 11 different departments, ranging from agronomy, agricultural economics, horticulture, plant pathology, soil sciences, conservation ecology, meat sciences, food sciences. And this might differ with other universities around the world where you actually have food sciences as part of natural sciences. So we are one of the very few universities in South Africa where we have a Faculty of Agri-Sciences, and that makes Stellenbosch quite unique. And if you look at the ratings, when we compare ourselves with the rest of the world, our faculty is actually one of the best around the world, despite being one of the smallest compared to the other 10 faculties of the university. So they say dynamite comes in small packages. And then, of course, we have the Department of Viticulture and Enology as well. It's the department where I am a lecturer in, and where I teach undergraduate modules for our students. And I also have postgraduate students working on a number of projects, ranging from climatic studies and the impact thereof on grape quality and, of course, wine quality. Stellenbosch University and the town itself, it's one of the most known centers because of the rich wine history. Basically, as I mentioned prior, the university is in central downtown or in the center, and we are surrounded by vineyards. So it's a very touristic town. And now, even during COVID period, it's really strange not to see any tourists in town. It has a vibrant student life, and we normally have ample a couple of thousand, 5,000 to 6,000 students in a semester here, coming to do either a semester or spending one full year on campus. But it's a very popular destination for a number of reasons. And of course, you're half an hour away or 20 minutes away from the beach, and the gardening route in the Eastern Cape, etc. And of course, about 2 hours away from the Big Five. You can see lions, giraffes, etc.
Okay, I would like to talk more about the touristic aspect of Stellenbosch. But first, since you're also a Fulbright alumnus, I would like to ask you, when or how did you become interested in studying abroad?
I was born in a town called Paarl. It is about 30 kilometers from Stellenbosch. So I grew up in and my father used to work at Nederburg, which is part of the Distel group up until today. And I always had a curiosity about grapevines, being surrounded by them. And then I was fascinated by these words on wine bottles saying strawberry, lychee, pear. And I thought to myself, what did these people smoke? And I realized that, curiosity, I need to want to know more. So I decided to enroll for this program here at Stellenbosch University. And what makes Stellenbosch also very unique is that it's the only university where you can study a BSc degree in viticulture and enology in South Africa. So it's very unique. And so I came to Stellenbosch, and I was fascinated by traveling. And I wanted to find out a little bit more about what makes the vineyard tick, trying to understand and trying to have a better grasp of what's happening. And I was privileged, and the traveling bug bit me when my master supervisor advised me to apply for an international exchange period. And I thought, why would you do that? And she told me, trust me, this is going to open your world. So at that time, I enrolled for the International Student Exchange Program, ISEP, and I think they are still active and still doing exchanges, depending whether your university, of course, has an agreement. And I went to France, to the Loire Valley in 2008, where I spent 6 months. Oh my gosh, I have some understanding of French, but boy, did it open my world. I made friends, which I'm still friends up until today, people that I can still call night or day when I have problems. And it just opened both my social, increased my networks from a social side, but also from a scientific perspective. And as a young scientist, I came back with a lot of knowledge, which I still use up until today in my current research projects. And I finished my degree, my PhD in 2015. I had somewhat of a different progress during my PhD, because normally you do your undergraduate, your postgraduate, your PhD, and then you do a postdoc. But I was appointed as a junior lecturer in 2009, and then I was appointed as a lecturer just after I graduated. So I never had a postdoc period where I could experience a different laboratory. And then I read about the Fulbright, and I thought, should I, shouldn't I? I've heard a lot about it. People told me it's extremely difficult to apply for, but oh well, I love a challenge. Let me try. Yeah, and that's how I decided to enroll for Fulbright. Yeah.
Okay, so that's how you found out about Fulbright, right?
Yes.
And what was the application process for you like? And of course, why did you started thinking about the United States and Fulbright in particular?
I approach it a bit differently. First of all, like I said, I never had the opportunity to do a postdoc position or be a postdoctoral fellow. And in 2016, I attended a grapevine physiology conference in Italy, and I met Marcus Keller. Professor Marcus Keller is a distinguished professor in viticulture, and I was blown away by the research, what this professor did. So I decided maybe this is time to just see what this professor does. Some of our research, I do some of the things that he's did in the past, and I think he will be a great mentor. So what is really important is to have a mentor and to start following those uh, individuals. What I do, I follow them on social media if they've got any social media accounts, just to see what research they are doing, what they're interested, whether there are any new publications, and to familiarize myself with what's happening in the different laboratories. And seeing that I met this professor at this conference, I emailed him and I said, dear professor, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm interested in doing a Fulbright. Can I come to your laboratory? And I thought this professor is going to laugh in my face, but he immediately replied and he said, yes, of course, you're always welcome. Of course, I remember you. And I think the biggest fear of doing this is the fear of rejection. And I think once you can actually break that stigma of people going to say no, in 99% of the times when I asked a senior academic or a professor whether I can come and even do a research visit, if I'm traveling Europe, I normally try to combine it with a research visit. The answer is always yes. I never got a no. The only time is like, no, I cannot do it on that particular day. But then it became a motto that the worst thing that can happen is that they can say no. And people always tell me, but don't you think you're pushing it a bit? And I said, no, because I want to learn from that individual. So Professor Marcus Keller said, yes, you can come. So I started the application process. Fortunately, I had a research project in mind, which I already received funding from our National Research Foundation, the NRF. And I wanted to do an extension of the project, which was perfect because it fell within the scope of what Professor Keller does. And I then went and completed the project. Of course, you need to do a research project. And within the Fulbright program, of course, there are different umbrellas. One is for teaching, a US scholar, also a teaching program, and as well as specialist. And also for US scholars to come from the US to go to other countries. And I completed the application process. And then I thought, well, I'm also of the opinion when I apply for something, at least I went through the entire process of applying. And then, of course, I can still get a no, but at least I tried. And I got some experience to go through the process. So I sort of forgotten about the application until I got the call and said that I should come for an interview. And all the paperwork and together with the daily life was quite daunting. But, once you could tick the box, and like I said, I forgot about it. I went for the interview. And the panel asked a lot of strange questions. Because initially I only wanted to go for 3 months and they discouraged me from doing that. They told me go for 6 months or go longer. And I thought, are these people crazy? Why do they want me to go for so long? And I only realized that, and I will tell you a bit later why that happened. But as I walked out of the room, I thought, I'm not going to get it. But it was a good experience. I'm going to forget about it. So a couple of months later, I got this call and I thought, like, who is this? And then they told me no, but I got the Fulbright. I was just sitting there and I thought, how is this even possible? Because I know what a prestigious program it is, and the doors that it can open. But being able to write that on your curriculum vitae, of course, it opens a lot of doors for you. And yes, you shouldn't be scared of all the paperwork. And like I said, it's very important to stay connected. We're living in a very fast-paced world where everything is fast-moving. But my normal modus operandi is when I get to the office on a Monday, I normally try just to browse every possible page which I bookmarked for new opportunities. And it's in order just to stay connected, find out what's outside in the world. Because here in South Africa, a lot of young people always complain that they do not have a lot of opportunities, which I get frustrated with because I know that there are a lot of opportunities, but you should be able and willing to put in a bit of effort in order to achieve your goals. And I just still do it. Every morning when I wake up, the first thing I do is just to browse Twitter, social media, see what happened in the couple of hours that I was asleep. And if something new popped up, whether it's new publications that was published, and it also helps me because I've got a little black book where I put in new research ideas, and it helps me to formulate new projects, etc. But staying connected and figuring out what's happening in the world to project yourself, it really helps me. And it's important to visualize and to have a vision, because you should have a short, medium, and long-term plan. And if one of your visions is to travel the world, although we can't do it right now, but you should have that hunger to learn, and just a passion for whatever you're doing, whether it's arts, sciences, theology, whatever makes you happy. And once you've got that, I think your road is paved.
Very good. So, in short words, you're pretty much saying that what we need to have to apply for a scholarship is, first of all, a little bit of interest in doing research, then following the steps, and most importantly, being patient for the waiting periods that there could be. But it's not impossible, right?
Nothing is impossible. Nelson Mandela has a quote that says, "It all seems impossible until it's done," and it's so true. That's how I feel with a lot of things in life as well, because you always feel like, oh, I really have to do this, and a lot of other Fulbright alum also agrees with that, where they have the paperwork, all the documents that you had to complete. It's so tedious, but in the end of the time, at the end of the day, it's all worth it.
Absolutely. And because of that, I would like to, we have covered what was the application process like, and everything you had to do to get the scholarship. So what was your experience like in the United States while studying?
Well, I was fortunate that my husband and my family also went with me. So I didn't go through the process on my own. And it encompassed a lot of things, both not only on the research side, but I was also able to attend conferences, etc., which was all part of the program and part of the development. So getting to the US, of course, with my family, it was a very interesting experience because my son was only 3 years old at that time, and we arrived there late on the Friday night. Professor Keller picked us up at the airport, and we decided to stay in a hotel for the first night or so. And one of the things which I never knew, and nobody told me about it, that it was really difficult to find accommodation for 6 months. While normally you're in Stellenbosch, if you're a visiting researcher, there are accommodation available, and people will help you. So the lab staff is trying to assist me, but in the end, I was calling frantically from South Africa, trying to figure out how to get an apartment, which was difficult. One of the other big things in the US, of course, is that if you don't stay in Washington, D.C. or in Seattle, it's extremely difficult to travel because it's not as well connected like in Europe, where you can travel with trains, traveling from Bordeaux to Paris within 3 hours. So that was quite a challenge, which meant that I had to buy a car. Fortunately, the second-hand cars are fairly cheap in the US. So I had to buy a car, I had to get used to driving on the other side, which is the wrong side in South Africa.
Okay.
And just trying to adapt and to settle in. But part of the Fulbright scholarship is that they also give you a settling in allowance, which actually helps you to purchase either some pots and pans, etc., or whatever you want to use the money for. So those were two of the biggest adaptations for me. I remember I struggled for about 2 weeks just to get into the rhythm, because everything, there was about a 10-hour time difference, which was quite hard on me and my family. But looking back at it now, it was an eye-opening experience for my son. And despite me jumping right into the research, we had lots of family time. We were able to visit California, go to Disneyland, and all those things, and visit Seattle as well, and spending weekends there. So in that regard, it was very open. But it didn't come without challenges. As I mentioned earlier, I couldn't understand why the panel insisted that I stay longer.
Okay.
It took us about a month just to settle in, trying to arrange electricity and cable, as they call it, television and all of that. And if I would have gone for 3 months, of course, finding accommodation would have been more of a nightmare, as well as, getting rid or selling all of the things that you bought. So I would definitely advise someone, if you're a scholar, of course, and you want to go and study there, that will either be for undergraduate, postgraduate degrees. But if you go for research periods, I would strongly advise you to go for 6 months or more. I now understand why. And of course, my research is very restricted to a specific period of the year, where we have grapes available, where we need to do measurements. So I was also at a race against time, because I had to get in grapes at a specific time, do the analysis, etc. So that was another factor. So, and I know that every researcher knows when it's the peak times and the busy times, and when they need to do whatever they need to do.
That's great. And another thing that I find very interesting is that you mentioned that you did this scholarship accompanied by your family. So in many cases, people might tend to think that, since you are part of a family, it would be harder to apply for a scholarship because they might not be included, or they wouldn't have the chance to travel with you. But in your case, you are demonstrating that it can be done.
It's definitely, it was, if they were not able to go with me, I would have probably not do it. But it's difficult, even if I travel full Vita Global for a couple of days, a week. Sometimes it's difficult to be away from them, and I couldn't have done 6 months with not seeing them, because everything happens at a fast pace. And one of the nice things is that the Fulbright scholarship also offers a monthly dependent allowance for your dependents. And of course, they also provide you with a stipend. And the stipend is based on the research site or the state where you are based. So those are things that you should keep in mind. If I may, Mario, I actually want to give the some tips or guidelines,
Absolutely.
and something that I've learned from the experience. As I mentioned, it's really, really important accommodation. It's not as in South Africa, and there's probably a big cultural difference, which I now understand, between the two countries. But one of the main things when you are in the US, um, insurance, medical insurance, it's so expensive. Um, and my advice is just to get the best possible insurance. They also, part of Fulbright, they do provide primary medical coverage for the grantee. But in the case of my family, I had to get additional medical insurance for them, just in case, because anything can happen. And it's something that if you apply, just be sure. I remember when I left South Africa, I had 3 medical insurances. And by the time I got back, I only had 2 because the one expired. But it's really, really important to have very good medical insurance if you go to the US, because it's very expensive there. But in South Africa, we have companies that normally does travel insurance if you travel abroad. So that will be a very important thing for any international student that's planning on traveling,
Okay.
to keep that in mind.
Yeah, in the case of Latin American viewers, well, they would have to research medical insurances in their specific area. But yes, that's a great tip for everyone interested in studying abroad, especially in the United States.
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned that you have been to Chile, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to know what is the wine industry like in South Africa with more detail, and how does it compare to Chile?
In South Africa, we have a wine history of more than 360 years. I think the Chilean wine industry is a bit younger. And of course, in South Africa, we have lots of space. Where in Chile, you have your 200 kilometers in the amateur, smaller space. But if you think in terms of wine style, the South African wines, of course, we are a bit warmer. And I know in Chile you get certain regions which is a bit more arid and drier. But I've tasted wines from Chile which is phenomenal. Um, in the sense that when I was there, we did a wine tasting in Casablanca, where I told one of the professors in Vita Global, I told him, Jean-Michel, I told him, but this wine reminds me of a English sparkling wine, because the British in the UK, they are making a lot of wines now as well. And because the acidity was so high, but it's only because my South African palate is not used to very high and acidic white wine. As for your red wines, I love Carmenère. It reminds me of Cabernet Sauvignon, and Cabernet Sauvignon here in South Africa, in Stellenbosch specifically, is one of the flagships. If you want to compare South African wines, of course, South African wines is better, but I'm just biased. I'm just biased. And but we have our main variety, white grape cultivar, which we plant here, is Chenin Blanc. And Chenin Blanc, it's a very versatile grape variety. And it's a cultivar where we can make sparkling wine with it, or méthode cap classique. It's actually champagne, but the French doesn't allow us to call it champagne.
Okay.
Table wine, and also dessert wine, your sweeter style wines. And of course now here in South Africa, and I know that there's been research done on, and this is in Chile as well, where if you have grapevines that are older than 35 years of age, In South Africa, we call them old wine, depending on the cultivar. So old wine Chenin Blanc. And these wines are quite exquisite. They taste completely different to younger producing vineyards, and they are quite expensive. They retail for about 800 Rand to 1,000 Rand per bottle. And I can't remember what the exchange rate is between pesos to Rand. Sorry about that,
We'll figure it
Maria.
out. Don't worry.
But it's very exquisite wines, and about 60% of South African Chenin Blanc is exported to the US, and the US love these wines. As I mentioned before, we also specialize in Cabernet Sauvignon is the flagship cultivar. It's of course the red cultivar which is planted, the most planted red grape variety around the world. And it does well in this area because we have lots of red soils, which is very, very fertile in this region. And then we've got some granite soils as well. So these Cabernet Sauvignons does very well. What this region, wine region, is also renowned for is its Bordeaux blends. So the classical Bordeaux varieties. And I think I've tasted one or two or some blends, and mostly in Chile, but not a lot. Maybe I just didn't visit the right wine farms, but maybe next time I'll come and taste more of your Chilean wines. But I think Chile is, of course, South Africa's biggest competitor when we export wines to Europe, and also not a wine only, but also table grapes. Because we more or less in the same time that the grapes ripen, table grapes, and of course it's a big. So we have some competition going on there as well, but it's positive competition. Competition is all not only bad, but it's also good.
Absolutely. Okay, so at the moment you are coordinating an Erasmus project, which includes 16 institutions from 9 countries. Of those institutions, 2 of them are Chilean universities, one being Universidad de Talca. Can you tell us a bit about this project?
The project is an Erasmus Plus funded project, and it's called Vita Global. The concept or the idea and the vision of this project is to find a common ground, because if you look at the participating countries, like you said, Chile, Uruguay, Argentina, South Africa, Georgia, and of course our friends in Europe, Italy, France, Spain, and there's someone I'm forgetting. Portugal.
Portugal, okay.
Yes. If you think of those countries, of course, within the European context, and if you even compare Europe with the rest of the wine-producing countries, say in the Southern Hemisphere, there is a very big difference in terms of wine style, etc. And because in Europe, the old world wine countries, and South Africa, we regarded, and Chile, and Argentina, new world wine countries. So we can actually learn so much from them. Yet, despite our differences, there's also lots of commonalities. We all have diminishing resources for winemaking. We all have face climatic change. We all face problems with alcoholic fermentation because of climate change. And this project seeks to try to find modules where we can actually look at finding common ground, where we can actually learn from each other. With the current setup of the project, there is we will incorporate modules which will be presented at the respective universities in South America, South Africa, as well as in Georgia. And also we are aiming to have lots of traveling and exchanges of staff and hopefully postgraduate students in the near future, which wasn't part of the actual uh, the current funding cycle. But it's also highlighted within the winemaking context. As I said, there are a lot of differences, yet so much similarities, and trying to not to reinvent the wheel, but to share the knowledge. And that's how we're going to make a better society, and also make the wine industries globally more sustainable. I know in South Africa it's quite a difficult concept for producers to understand, because people are used to working in isolation and reinventing. So this person is like a little hamster in their own wheel. But from what I've seen in the project and being part of this magnificent project, where we actually have a lot of skills. We have very senior academic staff and myself, which is a fairly young academic, where we can learn from, share knowledge, and of course make our courses, our academic offering at our respective institutions better. I must say one of the challenges, and we're trying to work around it, is the language barrier. And I actually put myself up for a challenge, and I told myself 2020 will be the year that I'm going to learn Spanish, because I catch some bits of it when the colleagues are talking, and sometimes it's just too fast, and I'm like, oh, well they lost me. But I must say that working on this project actually encouraged me to expand, and get out of my comfort zone. It's a lot of hard work, but yet again, it's one of those things that you realize it's going to make a difference in somebody's life and the generation that's coming, that will follow.
That ties to my next question, which is, what does it mean to you to participate in a project like this? How do you feel about it?
Being so isolated from the rest of the winemaking world, this project actually makes it possible for us to be on a speed dial, where we have better networks with colleagues in the different at the different institutions. This would allow us to work better in the future, um, and to make the lives of the new generation a little bit easier. If I think back, when I was an undergraduate student or final year student 15 years ago, the idea of traveling and working in a foreign country, I was so scared. And nowadays, if you look at it, my son, he just wants to be on an airplane. He's just thinking, when am I traveling again? When can I travel? And if I talk to my students, they are so clued up about traveling and doing it on their own, etc. And I think if we are in a situation like wine, working with a commodity which is so cosmopolitan, where people want to experience, which links on to tourism, and we are able to create jobs, because that's in essence what indirectly what we are trying to do with this research projects as well. Seeing how we do things in the different countries and learning from them, I think we're on the right road for the future, because I won't be here to solve all the problems. I can't solve the current problems all on my own, but if we work together, I think that's the way to go.
That's a beautiful message. Um, Additionally, how do you think the tools you gained by studying abroad helped you to get where you are now?
Wow. Like I said, the tools that I got from studying abroad helped me. It actually changed my life. I remember as a student, it helped me. I was always independent, but being independent and being in a foreign country, not speaking the language fluently, oh my gosh, it taught me how to be pushed out of my comfort zone and adapt to those situations, and trying to figure out what is this person screaming at? Is this individual screaming at me in France? What did I do wrong? But what's made it a little bit easier to understand is my ability to wanting to learn and trying to understand. I think it also comes from my South African background, where we come from a history where people are not fully understood, where people were marginalized. And that sort of pushed me to trying to understand, why do people behave the way? And is there something I can do to change it? In some cases, you cannot change people's perceptions and the way they think about things, but you can try to assist to make something better at least. So the biggest tool that I've also learned is patience, because I'm very impatient.
Okay.
So being abroad and completing all these forms and waiting to such an extent that you sometimes forget that you applied for things, because I want to see things now. I want to see change now, and being away, being more independent, trying to figure out things. If somebody screams in French or whatever language, and you can't express yourself, it actually helped me to navigate those emotions as well, and grow emotionally as well, because you are away from your comfort zone. And back in my time when I was doing all of this, of course now with when I did my Fulbright, it was a bit different. We only had SMS. But nowadays you have got WhatsApp, you've got Google Chat you had back then, or Yahoo Chat. You didn't have all these fast pacing. You can quickly call somebody halfway around the world. So
Yeah.
technology definitely helps. It definitely helps, and trying to navigate your way around that. But I always say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I can probably write a couple of books of my experiences that I had abroad, but it only made me stronger, and trying to understand cultural differences. And that's really important for someone who's contemplating or thinking about studying abroad. But
Absolutely.
it's definitely worthwhile.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, to close this interview, I would like you to offer one final advice for people interested in studying in the United States.
Um, I would like to advise you to just do it. You will always wonder what would have happened, and you only live once. YOLO. I think I've got some FOMO, fear of missing out, but if you have a passion for what you're doing, you will never work a day in your life. Because if you are passionate about what you're doing, and sometimes you're not sure if is this the right thing that I'm doing, and you don't always understand, because you there's so much happening in the world out there now, and you need to have your goals plan for yourself worked out. Not that somebody else is telling you what to do. That's really important. Just do it. If you're wondering about it, just do it. One of the key things that I've come across, and I've served on a number of panels already, the biggest deterrent from somebody to apply for funding or any other opportunity is the fact that they think, or they look at the criteria and they say, nah, I don't have A, B, or C, and then they leave it. But imagine if everyone that sees this says that. Then, of course, the panel, when they receive it, they will see that you don't have A, B, C. If they invite you for an interview, be honest. Tell them, I don't have A, B, or C. And it's up to the panel, because first of all, they will see that you were honest and that you know your own shortcomings. And that is a big positive. Just be positive. I know it's tough out there. And the reality, sometimes it sounds very easy, but it's not, and work hard. That's some of the advice that I want to give.
Thank you very much. I think everybody listening will find that very, very useful. I definitely had a lot of fun in this interview, and I learned so much about the wine industry around the world. So I'm very thankful for your time and for being with us today.
No, Maria, I'm the one that should be thanking you for this opportunity to speak to all of the listeners. And I hope that I've contributed to the knowledge of South Africa and the hunger to want to go and learn. And the listeners should just please contact me via email. I don't know whether you'll make my contact details available. And if they have any more questions, I don't know all the answers. That's why I can also always divert the questions, whether it's about Fulbright or visiting South Africa. I can always get the relevant people to answer the questions that they've got.
Thank you very much for the offer. Well, Erna, it was a pleasure talking to you today, and I hope you can visit us in Chile at some point, or I hope I can visit you in Stellenbosch. It would be so fun.
I definitely think you should come and visit us, or we can meet in Europe, and
Okay.
and then you will you will understand the 24-hour or more traveling time.
Okay. That's fantastic. Thank you very much again. And,
pleasure, Mario.
And mucho éxito con las clases de español. A lot of success. Okay, you can do it.
Lots of success for the classes in Spanish.
Yeah.
See, I get some of it, but then sometimes when you guys start talking too fast, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. But yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.